take that out.
Yeah.
We're going to edit it anyway.
Sure.
We got to take 37 interviews and fit it into a hour and a half video. So
Right.
a lot's going to be cut out. If you want to say it again, like Tim, you stumble on a word. You do that occasionally, like me.
Not anymore.
Just say, I want to say it again.
Yeah.
And my questions will not ever show up.
Yep.
It'll be your responses. And as I've said again, we'll let you take a look at anything that goes out.
Okay.
So a couple of funny stories just to get started. I got Judge Ingram, and we interviewed him. It was about an hour and a half interview. And I hosted a group of Superior Court judges over at Taylor English. And I
Shoot. Hold on a second.
Yeah, everybody make sure all your phones
phones are
are
off.
Done.
That's screaming.
That is quite a ringtone.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob. You can? Yeah, yeah. Just remember the name of the check. It's MIKEPLANT. Well, you'll just pay. No. That's the beauty of it. You're gonna pay the Galleria. Yeah. So it's gonna stay right here. Right. Yeah, no, it would just pay them direct. Awesome. I think we'll see, no, the impact's gonna be huge, so, yeah.
Boy, it's a shame it's such a gray day.
All right, that's awesome, Rob. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll cover more of it later. I'm in here, actually, Tim's here with me. David Connell's doing this History of Cobb documentary, so Tim and I are gonna make up a bunch of shit about how we got here.
Don't really have to make it up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Rob, thanks, man. Bye. Rob said hi. Rob said.
Well, anyway, Conley Ingram, his daughter Lark Ingram, who's on Superior Court,
Yeah.
was over our building, and I told her I'd videotape her father. And she said, I want to see a copy of that. And I said, well, Lark, it's not edited. It's about an hour and a half of just pure video footage. She said, I want the grandkids to see their grandfather.
That's great.
And so I said, okay, I'll send it to you. So I sent it to her, and she sent it out to the grandkid. About 2 weeks later, I get a call from Conley. He said, David, I understood you sent my daughter a raw speech. I said, yeah, I hope that was okay. He said, sure, but I haven't seen it. My wife and I want to sit down and see it too.
Yeah.
So we forwarded it over to them so they could watch it. So, and then Conley called us back and said, I forgot to talk about 2 or 3 people. Would you mind coming back and do a retake?
No kidding.
But I've got a bunch of those kinds. So Bob Krillin bragged about his wife. And then called me later and said, I just want a video about me bragging about my wife. So Ty cut a video just for him talking about his wife. So got a lot of those kind of stories.
That's good.
So if you think of something later on you want to include, fine. Later
Okay.
on you say, I shouldn't have said damn at that point.
Okay.
They'll cut it out. So anyway, first of all, start by telling me a little bit about your backgrounds, each of you. We'll start with you, Mike. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Where are you born?
I'm-
Where'd you go to college? A little
I'm-
bit about your Olympic background. That
I'm
kind of
a
stuff.
legend in my own mind. So, I'm a proud cheesehead. I grew up in Wisconsin and played all traditional sports when I was growing up. But then my brother got us into speed skating, going around in a circle, take a left every 100 meters, and life was good. And so something I was terrible at when I started, and it just became a motivator. Quickly saying, this is finally something that I couldn't conquer right out of the box as a kid. So next thing you know, I'm 15, 16 years old, and I'm living in Europe, and I start making world teams, and made the Olympic team in 1980, where Eric Heiden won all 5 gold medals. My brother was on the Olympic team as well, and then quickly transitioned that into really a business career in sports. Back in 1980, there was no one knew about sponsorship and sports marketing, and I'm 21 years old. 9 of us were going to keep skating for a number of years, or a couple of years till the next Olympic Games, and I worked with an individual and knocked down a $380,000 sponsorship deal by banging out a proposal on my mom and dad's electric typewriter. So got me into the sports marketing business right away, and a parallel path, I became one of the leaders in the Olympic movement in the U.S. Eventually the chairman of an athletes group, and I chaired dozens of different commissions and committees and president of a couple national governing bodies of sport, and so on the board, on the executive committee, and then I did the same thing internationally in sport. So yeah, built a pretty good career in this business. Had a company that did business in the U.S. and China. I built that and then sold it to Turner Broadcasting for me to be the president of Ted Turner's Goodwill Games. That's what brought me to Atlanta in '95. Still going down the path of my Olympic involvement as well. I mean, I was on the board here for ACOG for 7 years, helped Billy garner votes to get the games here in Atlanta, and same in Salt Lake City. And then in 2003, there was a big transition at Turner Broadcasting with AOL. You know, history shows that one of the worst mergers ever in the history with AOL, Time Warner. And so a new chairman came in at Turner Broadcasting, Phil Kent. Phil and I had been friends through Turner, did a few international TV deals together. He wanted to make some changes at the Braves. Braves were hemorrhaging cash. They were winning, but the business was not performing well. So Derek Schiller and I were brought in here the same day to, you know, come in here and kind of blow this thing up and take it down a new path. So here I am 17, 18 years later.
I understand that your better half was in the Olympics also, and actually did better than you, I understand.
Oh yeah, you had to bring that up, but I proudly say, you know, and speaking to a lot of places and get introduced as an Olympic athlete, I said, you know, between my wife and I, in front of a big audience, say between my wife and I, we have 5 Olympic medals, and everyone's like, wow, that's impressive. And then I say, she has 5 and I have 0. So, yeah, Mary was one of the best swimmers in the world. She held 2 world records for 21 years, and still to this day, she's got times that most people can't imagine. They're untouchable. So, yeah, she was an impressive swimmer and gets in the pool a little bit still today.
So, Mike, building this stadium and up against a lot of pressure, you did what people said couldn't be done.
Yeah.
In the time frame. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, but was your preparation and experience as an athlete competing, is that part of what drove you to build this successful project?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, my whole career, once you're done on the field of play, there's a certain amount of us or group of us that you still like to compete every day. And I love it. My big motivator is when people say something can't be done. What I did in China, the business I built over there, people said there's no way you can pull that off. And we pulled it off at an incredible level. And so, you know, this was a bold vision. We had this vision for many, many years downtown. It takes, obviously, a public-private partnership and people like Tim that can quickly grasp it and share it and say, all right, I'm all in. He and I talk about trust. Trust was a big part of the relationship that the two of us had, and I think injected that into the people that were part of our teams that, look, this is a trusting relationship. And you have to have a really high standard of excellence. This was not for the faint of heart. This was not to bring a mediocre standard. We had to perform at a really high level. No grace period. We knew that first game was going to be in April of 2017. We knew what we had to accomplish to get the vast majority of the mixed use and the battery to look like it was finished, so that it was going to be inviting and accommodating. And so, yeah, I loved it when people said it couldn't be done. I've talked to a lot of developers that I said, look, I know you all behind us were snickering and saying good luck, fat chance, when we were saying, hey, here's our vision and here's all the renderings, this is what we're going to do. Just about every single one of them, you know, they told us that they thought it was impossible. And I said, well, it really was, but that's because you guys couldn't do this. We're in a different, you know, a little bit different subset here of understanding who we are, understanding the ownership of Liberty that was all in with us. So, this takes guts, okay, it takes perseverance, takes vision, takes money. A lot of times that's the hardest thing to source, and we were able to put that together both on the private and public side. And then, like I said, it takes a team that's coming every day, bringing their A game, and really committed to getting to the finish line.
Tim, you have a background that prepared you to do this as well. Talk about where you came from and what you got here and what you deal with in politics that prepared you to pull this project off on the government side.
Well, Mike and I grew up relatively close to each other. I was in south of Chicago in a little community in Illinois. I turned 18 and went to New York with a high school buddy. Never seen a city that big in my life, but went on a dream and a prayer, and 6 weeks later started working in the mailroom of an advertising agency, believe it or not, and worked hard. Got to know marketing and promotion, and eventually got promoted almost 7 times throughout while I was in New York. So by the time I was 28, I was a vice president and account supervisor, handling accounts like Castrol Motor Oil and Marriott Courtyards and Sharp Consumer Electronics, and did a lot of major advertising campaigns and introduced a lot of products in the national arena. Maxell audio tape, for those people old enough to remember what audio tape was, actually was part of the videotape introduction and the big fights that went on with that. And then, believe it or not, one day this is when Marriott Courtyard was just starting. I got invited to a meeting in the chairman's office to find out who was going to work in Courtyard, and I was the guy at the end of the table, so I got delegated, and they brought me down to Atlanta, picked me up, drove me up to Lake Lanier, and we spent a weekend at Lake Lanier doing the strategy and thinking about how to roll out Courtyard. And there was only 2 built at the time here in Atlanta, and I fell in love with Atlanta. I said, this is great. I had just got married, just had a kid who was about a couple months old, and we were living in New Jersey, and all concrete. And I said, I need to get where there's trees and the grass and land. So I talked to my boss about being transferred to the Atlanta office if it ever came up, and sure enough, they were pitching a new account. And I came down for that, and we won it. So I got transferred down here in 86. Yeah, 86. Worked in advertising most of my life. Where I got involved is I went to a meeting with my homeowners association, and I got elected president because it was me and another guy, and he had been president for 20 years, so I got the new job. And the next thing I know, my neighborhood was adjacent to the city of Marietta, and I was being involved in annexation and zoning and things of that nature. And that's where I first got to meet Gordon Wysong, who was a district commissioner at that time, and then eventually Sam Owens was a district commissioner. And it's this huge development came through, actually by the Williams brothers that came to put it in, and they were wanting something like 800 homes just adjacent to where we were, some old farmland. And watching zoning issues with the city, I got all the neighborhoods together around it, and half were in the county, half in the city, and we all got together and worked on it. And that went for 8 months, and it was the first real true neighborhood that went from starter homes and had a mixed starter homes, and you can actually move up from the starter home all the way up to retirement gated community without ever leaving the neighborhood, and had a lot of parks and tennis courts and things like that. And was heralded at that time, which was the early 80s, as one of the best developments and one of the best processes where the developer and the community worked together. And there were about 8 of us, and that was the end of it. From that point on, that brought so much attention because the Marietta Daily Journal covered it so well. Next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls from all folks, even Chairman Byrne put me on the ARC, and I just got involved in community stuff. And so when Chairman Byrne decided to run for governor, and Sam Owens decided to run for for chairman, I got recruited to run for district commissioner, so I was in that spot. While I was in New York, I went to Fordham University and studied economics and got transferred down here right before I finished, but always had an interest in economic development and economics and how that works. So was working for an ad agency down here, got elected, or was about ready to run, like I said. My boss gave me the okay, ran for district commission for 8 years, and then became chair after that. And we were at the height of the recession, and so we were looking for opportunities to try to jumpstart our economy. So my business, helping companies grow their business from a marketing and strategic planning perspective, to actually there was a period where I was president of a division of a carpet mill for 5 years. Having that perspective, I understood the biggest obstacle to business being successful is the government getting in the way. So when I fortunately was able to get in the government position, my focus was going to be helping business succeed, because that's what grew the economy, by trying to stay out of the way. And I used to tell folks, I hope I never see him, ever, because if I see him, there's usually a problem. If I don't see him, everything's going great. So the business world, I understood that it had to succeed in order for the county to succeed. So it's not the other way around. The county doesn't succeed because of the government. So that was the attitude that I brought into the office as chairman.
Well, one thing I found as I've interviewed people like yourselves is you don't do it by yourself. It takes a supportive family, particularly people like Mary and Annette, who put up with a lot, take a lot of phone calls, don't see you a lot sometimes, that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about the role of the spouse with somebody like yourselves. How important it is that, what advice do you give other people that may be rising up in that larger role in their community? Mike, why don't you just start about Mary?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is you get them engaged in what you're doing, and they can't be, you don't check your spouse at the door. You take her with you, and you engage your family in what you're doing. And now, fortunately, working in the sports business like I have my whole life, it's not that difficult to do that if I make the effort and I'm the inspiration behind it, because my kids have been to 6 Olympic Games, and they go to Super Bowls and the World Series, and so it's easy, especially with my son, to say, hey, do you want to go to the Masters today? Because I got to go do some business over there. So they're not dopes, but I think the big thing is making sure that they're part of, obviously, what you do in your career, and you take the good with the bad. I mean, I know Mary, there's times I'm like, look, we got to go to another dinner. But I'm engaged in and I'm involved in what's important to her as well. So there's a trade-off there, and making sure it's just not one-sided. And it's easy to I think forget and try to say, hey, I need you guys to do this because this is what pays the bills. It can't be just about what's paying the bills. It can't be just about my career. It's making sure that they feel part of it, and and my kids have learned a lot from them. I've always said to them, you're in a different world here. You're gonna learn a lot about respect and where your place is, and my job is to keep you really grounded, because your friends aren't going Super Bowl sitting on a 50-yard line, but I got to keep you grounded to understand this is all a privilege, and then you got to go make this stuff happen on your own too. So I think the big thing is keeping them engaged in what you're doing, and not forgetting about them, that you're just kind of in and out of their lives. But it is hard. I mean, my daughter's graduation, at 18, now she's graduated from UGA. I was under the grandstands for 45 minutes dealing with the stadium operating agreement that we had a couple little glitches on as he's getting ready to get approved by the Board of Commissioners. So, yeah, those are things you have to do.
Tim, you're in a unique position in that everybody in the county knows you. They know your phone number. And about half of the county typically is mad at the county chairman for something. And I know Annette got lots of phone calls and other things, but we all know, because we know you, you couldn't have made it through without Annette. So talk about her role in your life and your ability really to help pull something like this off.
Well, she's always been my best friend, and she's the one that always says, leave your trash at the front door, you know, and come in and focus on the family. She was like, forget about, you know, I want to hear about your day and all that good stuff. But when you're here, the focus is our family and what's going on. And she always made sure that we were centered in that regard. She was, I mean, when we first got together with Mike, we were having a lot of meetings down in Atlanta that were just meetings down in Atlanta, and I would have to tell her I won't be home till 9. We're going to a meeting in Atlanta. What's it for? It's going to a meeting in Atlanta. So there was a little bit of what's, you know, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you kind of thing going on when we start with the Braves. But in politics itself, like you said, no matter what decision you make, 50% is going to like you, 50% is not. And sometimes I take it out on her. A lot of times they would corner her and say, what's your husband thinking? You know, and she would say, well, you'd have to go ask him. You know, I'm not the politician he is. And just like you with Mary, she had to go to a lot of dinners that she didn't really want to. We actually got to the point later in my relationship where I would classify them by, this one is fun, I know you're going to want to be there. This one is, if you really feel like just going out, we can go. And this one, you gotta be sick, you know, about 10 minutes before we're supposed to go, because you're not going to want to be there. So we had a little game we played with that regard. But she, you know, she got two low points in our career. Was when she got anonymous letters accusing me of doing things, you know, having affairs with other women and things like that. And you know, she trusts me obviously, and she loves me, and she knew it wasn't true. But with anybody, that kind of thing stings. And then, of course, for her to sit by for 3 years and watch the Atlanta media just rip me apart for no reason at all, other than the fact that they didn't know about it before, you know, it happened. And they put a target on my chest, and were hell-bent on, you know, taking Timley down one way. And all I could say is that they believed that we did something illegal, and they were going to keep digging until they found it. So they had their story, and they were just trying to dig. And in doing that, they ripped a lot of, you know, wounds in me. And that many times had a hard time when I came home, having to carry the burden of watching me get ripped apart, knowing that it wasn't true. And so that was the hardest part for her. So I tried to protect her, being, you know, the guy I am, but in the end, we decided that we were going to try to make sure I kept focus on what was important to her and supported what she was doing. Most of my kids were gone by then, so they weren't really an issue. But and my parents were living with us at the time too, and she was a great caregiver for them because I was gone a lot. But without her keeping me grounded and reminding me that we're doing the right thing, and to keep that focus, we're doing the right thing, I don't think we would have gotten through it.
I remember always saying, Tim and I were talking about this, we had this little inside joke that we just said, I told you this was a really bad idea. You know, we'd hit certain milestones, and you know, we'd find, I mean, there were the vast majority of people, they trusted, they believed, they saw what could potentially happen here, even as we're just going vertical, but not producing any results yet. But you know, they're not the loud negative narrative. But I always used to say to them too, is they look, we're never going to get an apology, but that's okay. We don't need one.
Y'all talk a little bit about, you didn't know each other, and then suddenly you start this journey together. You had to be a support group for each other. I don't know how you did it, but y'all had to mutually support each other. Talk a little bit about the trust bond that you had. Tim had to trust you because y'all are providing the numbers. And you had to trust him that he was going to deliver on his commit with the Board of Commissioners. You had to create a special bond between both of you.
Yeah.
Y'all talk about that, and then just like you're sitting on front couch talking to you.
I think it's you can judge character in people. I can pretty quickly. You separate the contenders from the pretenders. You see a lot of you know, quickly understood his roots and my roots and where we come from. We had a lot in common that way. There's no doubt, I could tell right off the bat that he's not compromising his ethics or his integrity, and has a conscience, and so we shared a lot of that in common. And I just, after that first lunch, which could have been an hour, it lasted 3 hours, and he and I just, we shared this vision. He got it right away, and then very quickly, I could tell what Tim said earlier is he understood the value of business and what they needed from a public side, because you can get bogged down in bureaucracy and red tape and regulations, and I could tell right away that he was going to be a driver. I know I'm a driver, and when you share the same vision in that he knew what their role was in order to help us accomplish what we promised we were going to do. And then it comes into the trust factor, as you said. There was no written commitment, and one of our friends in the newspaper made that a point in the front page, that how could you sign a deal that doesn't commit that they're going to do that? And it was trust, but it was also knowledge, because out of the box, Tim knew that we weren't going to just build this without that. And as we sit here today, we see what that's doing to churn this economy and how that's paying for, obviously, SunTrust Park and what you see behind us. So it all had to work together. And the two of us, I think some of the humor was every day when we'd read some of the trash that we'd see in certain publications. We'd look at each other and get on the phone and say, wow, that's pretty comical today. I guess these guys know more about this project than you and I do, huh? The bridge over 285, here it is again. It's never going to happen. And we looked at each other and said, that bridge is going up, because that bridge is a lifeline to connect over the Red Sea of 285. And it's gonna generate commerce. It's gonna get more convention business. It's gonna connect people, tens of thousands that live on both sides here in a very safe way. So we're like, the bridge is going up. We knew it. Confidence, trust. I think that's a lot of what made this all happen.
What about you, Tim? I know you had to have trust in Mike for a whole lot of reasons. In your case, you could be fired. It's called an election. Mm-hmm. And one thing I always admired about you is you didn't let that worry you on the front end. You trusted Mike, you trusted this project, and you just let it go. Talk about why you were willing to do that. For a politician, the notion of getting deselected is not a good thing. Of course, Mike could be fired too, but as a politician, the worst thing can happen to you, I think, or at least one of them, is getting deselected and all that. So talk a little bit about that.
My priority has always been what's in the best interest of Cobb County, and I'm just a tool for making that happen. And I was lucky enough to be put in a position to be the leader and help make things happen. And like Mike said, I mean, my word and my commitment is what's most important to me, and never breaking that. I mean, that's who I am, and I am ethical, and I work hard, and when I find a good idea, I like to push it too. But ironically, I've been talking to, before I even met Mike, we were talking with the Cumberland CID leadership, saying, why is the Cumberland CID was the first CID in Georgia, but it's losing ground to the other CIDs in terms of success. What's going on? We have the highest vacancy rate, we have the lowest square foot rate, both in office and retail. We can't seem to get kick-started. The malls, goes up and goes down, up, down. What's the big issue? And that's when everybody was moving into, well, you need a live, work, play kind of environment, and you need residential component. And we just didn't have that in the Cumberland area, the residential component in the play. The reason the Galleria Center only did day shows, and the best the Galleria could do was that we would have 50 one-week shows where you're moving in 2 days, you have 3 days of show, and you're moving out. That's the most profitable, best way for a Galleria Center to work. These guys were having 300 one-day shows or 2-day shows, because folks it wasn't a place where they could come stay overnight, because there's nothing to do at night. It was literally nothing to do at night. And take that with the lack of residential, we knew that the Cumberland CID needed a lightning rod. And it wasn't but a couple months later that Representative Earl Earhart introduced us, and he started talking about the Braves. I thought he was talking about a farm team or something, but I knew that they just built in Rome. I knew they just built in Virginia, and just built in Gwinnett, so I couldn't figure it out. But I didn't let him know that I wasn't quite sure at first what he was talking about. And then he got talking about the mixed use, and the more he, because like he said, this is something they want to do for a decade in Atlanta. The more he talked about the vision, the more I saw the energy, the commitment, the enthusiasm for that vision, and I knew that, okay, this is exactly what Cobb County needed, and this was exactly what Cumberland CID needed in order to go to the next level. But you just, and Mike is a true person. I mean, he is like he said, with his kids, he's grounded. He tells you the truth. He's honest. He's humble. And you know, like you can, when you read people, it's like you said, you can read, can I trust this person? And you always like to trust but verify. And I think we both went to Johnny Isaacson and asked, because I know I went to Johnny and said, what's with the Mike guy? And Mike called Johnny and said, what's with the Tim guy? And just to verify that, you know, that we could trust each other. And so that commitment from Senator Isaacson was huge. And plus it was the Atlanta Braves, the longest continuous running franchise in history. Obviously I've been down here a number of years, and I knew the Atlanta Braves stood for excellence, and I knew they did quality, and whatever they did, you never heard about their players getting into trouble, or you know, it was a quality organization. I don't know I would have gone, and so you could trust Mike because he was part of what turned it around, but I don't know if I would have gone down this road with 95% of the companies that are out there in the world, because it took someone like Mike as a driver, and with the Atlanta Braves excellence, commitment to excellence, to know that it was going to happen. That's why I could say without a doubt, no, I don't need a written agreement that you're going to, I mean, if he doesn't build it, what I'm going to do, sue him? I mean, you got to trust, you're not going to make an investment in the ballpark and not do the other part of it, especially since it's been a 10-year dream that you know you have to be successful in this arena. You have to do both of them together, and it's like buying a car without wheels. And he convinced me that this project was going to happen and they were going to make it happen, and I believed it. And so I got on the bandwagon and did what I had to do to make it happen.
Well, I think there's things quickly along the way, the trust verified, but then you start seeing the results quick.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 weeks, he and I have now honed in on a site, and 5 weeks later, we put down $50 million to buy this. So from a July 3rd lunch, by the last week of August, I've spent 3 weeks negotiating with the 82-year-old Mr. Saul in Baltimore to buy 82 acres of land at $49 million. And you know, going hard with that. And you know, before the Board of Commissioners approved any of this, I mean, we're into this project heavy. I mean, before the bonds ever validated, we got $150 million of our money into this thing. You know, so we're all in right from the start. And we had an interesting meeting one day, you know, with Tim's team there. But that's where, again, you could just see the way he and I operated. I mean, that General Patton picture is on the back wall there, and I know behind my back they called me General Patton. It was like someone's going to drive this thing every single day. Going to be decisive, going to lead, going to inspire, going to motivate, and I'm going to drive. And Tim did the same thing, and we had a room full of people and talking about bonds and all the legalities. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pages, and I won't mention names, but one or two people from his team said, well, if they don't validate, I mean, we're just nothing we can do. The deal's over. And I looked at him, I said, I'm going to lunch. And when I come back, I said, I won't mention the choice words I used in front of everyone, but I didn't tell the mayor of Atlanta that we're leaving on a contingency, okay? I don't know what you guys are thinking here, but we're all in. We're connected. We're coming to Cobb. We don't have another place to play. And so you figure it out, you know? So, yeah, those are some of the tough conversations. One of those individuals doesn't like me today. It's okay. We're here. We're doing what we said we were going to do.
Doesn't like me either, so.
No. But if you don't take that position, you just get bogged down, you know? So that's what driving's all about.
Yeah,
He drove on his side, and I drove on my side, and there was some carnage in the way.
Yeah, there was, governments don't go too fast, and we were pushing the string up the hill, but
Yeah.
We needed to keep it going because we, like you said, first game was
Yeah.
it was going to.
This was not building a convenience store on the corner that you could say, well, we'll get you that permit in 2.5 months. And, there were a number of times that I would have to call Tim and say, hey, let me give you this one today. And he'd say, I'll call you right back. And yeah, I just had to get a dose of reality. And I wasn't doing anything illegal, but it was just making sure people understood, look, we are motivated to help those guys succeed. Because they are going to churn this economy with jobs and tens of millions of dollars of tax impact. I mean, I saw the paper last Saturday, $61 million over at the halfway point for the splosh. I think we had a little bit to do with that, So,
Well, I think Bill Kenny was right. He was a very intuitive person. He saw a lot of things going on. This park will change the history of Cobb County forever. It will change Metro Atlanta forever.
yeah.
In fact, as you said many times, this will change the way people build baseball fields, right?
Yeah.
You got to feel proud about that. But talk about the journey. Now you can sit back and people thought, well, this was pretty easy to do. We'll put a statue out in front for both of you guys. But talk about the journey from the time you met with Earl till you opened, just the journey you went through, milestones, Mike. I heard you over at the Cumberland CID or the Cumberland Galleria, the Georgian Club, talk about that transition.
Yeah.
We bought some land, boom, 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 and
Yeah.
just tell that story narratively. I've still got your presentation, but tell the story narrative about how this journey occurred. And Tim, jump in when we're after stories. One thing Ty and I are doing is stories are fun, and you've already said some of them.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone and call. So
Yeah.
tell us some of those stories through this journey, short journey,
Well,
actually.
I think, again, it started with a really bold vision, and we had it for a number of years. We felt confident that building a destination could transform an area, could be a legacy, and it is a legacy, obviously, and it has transformed this area. 100+ teams. I have AC Milan from Italy here next Monday. And just that it happens every week that people come here because they want to see what that next big idea and the next big leap for all of them is because, again, from a financial standpoint, ballparks, arenas, football stadiums, on paper they don't pencil out. First of all, they sit on land that's tax exempt, so you take millions of dollars right out of the tax roll, and that doesn't go to the kids. When someone says, yeah, they stole money from the kids in the schools. We sit here today and we know that we're pumping $10+ million a year into the Cobb County school system. And he and I knew that. We knew that was going to happen. It's hard to get through that noise, So, but, look, I tell all these teams that come through here, you shouldn't do this. And they look at you a little stunned and they're like, well, why not? This is the future. And look what you guys did. I said, yeah, but what I mean by that is this is not a 3-year project. I mean, when we sit here today, when you have that camera out that window, in November of 2014, this was dirt. These were trees here. And a little over 4 years later, we're sitting here in my office at 2.5 million square feet, another 800,000 square feet going vertical in phase 2, and we built a little city. That's not something that takes a faint heart. Again, it's a huge team of people that had to be committed. And the public-private partnership, I've told people all over the world, you also can't do this because you can't find the public side that will get it, that will really be embracive from day one to shift and get through all the normal daily bureaucracy that unfortunately government is known for. They're blockers and we're doers, and there's a big difference between those two. So it's it was one of the hardest things I ever do. I get asked a number of times would I ever do it again, and I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing this again. There's no blueprint on how to do this. I mean, we made this up, and we drove hard, and we drove together, and our teams collaborated together, and that's why we got the result we did.
And I think one of the things I remember about the conversation how to get it done was when we were going through the first couple of phases of how a financial model that we both work. And Jim Pearson, as CFO, worked hard at coming up with different models and things, and we'd come up with a program, send it to the Braves. They no, you can't do that. Not going to do that. And it actually was very quick that we got the financial model where it worked. And I remember one of the conversations that Mike and I had, and he may or may not, but he said, Tim, one of the things that cost overruns and cost delays is with the government being involved with having to prove every brick colored, And I said, look, I don't know how to build a stadium. Nobody in the government knows how to build a stadium. The best way for us to do this is we have an agreement on how we support you financially. And again, because it's Mike Plant and the Atlanta Braves, we could say, we don't need, you're probably gonna build something beyond what we could even think about. So we're not gonna get involved in day-to-day approval of this, approval of that, and let you do what you're gonna do, which is build a world-class stadium. And we're gonna sit here and support you as much as we can and not get in the way by doing what other traditional governments would do. We want to be, in there every single day, being part of the operations in the building, and we didn't do that. We inspected. One inspector drove you crazy. It had to do with the sprinklers and things of that nature, but we were here to help remove obstacles, like I said, as opposed to putting new ones in front of them. And the best way was just where we started out with is, we're not going to get in the middle of building a stadium or a mixed use. We're just going to let you guys do what you do and do so well. I mean, they built a wonderful team and a wonderful legacy, and I just knew that they were going to over-exceed what I would have ever expected, and they did. Without, 3 years later. So
Yeah, we used to, and it was hard for some of the people on your team to get that,
Yeah.
because no, we've got a cape on with
Gotta
an S on
control
the
it,
back.
yeah.
We're the government. We know how to do this. But they can't work quick. They can't work entrepreneurial or efficiently, and we knew time was not our friend. So I was thankful that Tim from day one said, we're not going to be the blockers in the middle of this. And I said, look, we have a lot of financial motivation to do this right. We're here for 30 years. We're not going to screw this up. And so that's very different. That doesn't exist too many places in America, because the entity that owns this, they're like, no, we're the ownership. We're going to be involved in approval of everything. Like Tim said, picking out this carpet, and we'd be sitting here in an empty shell right now.
So the number one question everybody asks is, how the hell did you keep this a secret?
Yeah.
And like we were talking about that, nobody, when it got released, I remember the newscasters just shaking their head. You showed a picture of the ballpark, you showed the mixed use, you had the place. Why didn't we know about this? How did this, and of course the media hated that. How did you keep it a secret? Of course I knew about it, and I didn't go around talking about it, because
Yeah.
nobody needed to know.
No.
But how did you manage to pull that off, Mike?
Well,
Tim?
we both made a commitment to each other that we said, look, until we have a deal and we're ready to announce this, we're going to control that message. And we also knew that we're still working downtown. We're still playing baseball downtown. We're still engaged with the leadership downtown. And so, if we could pull this off, that message that we were leaving wasn't going to go over that well. And so, and also, what most people can't ever appreciate, and it's because of who we are. We're a public institution that people are emotionally attached to every day. You read about us in the newspaper every single day. I always, take Fortune 500 companies here in Atlanta, the big ones, Home Depot, Coke, UPS, others. You don't read about them in the newspaper every day. But we're in the newspaper every day, and when we trade this guy or that guy, and you just bought a $150 jersey for your kid, you're ticked off, and you know what? You send us a nasty gram and tell us what great individuals we are. And so, and we love the emotion, we love the passion, because look, we go to the playoffs last year after a dry spell, and that people get really emotionally engaged in in our business. We're just like other companies, though. We're like Mercedes and State Farm and NCR when they're moving here, and You know, the BB&T SunTrust was not negotiated out in the public, the merger between those two banks. You found out about that when the deal was done. And so that gets lost a little bit, I think, and that's why we knew that until we could look at each other and feel that the financial arrangement, the partnership, what we were both going to bring to the table, what we both were responsible for, we weren't going to say anything. We were going to keep that group tight. Now, granted, General Patton threatened a few people with their firstborn because we had engineers working on this, designers working on this. I mean, we'd already bought the land, and the broker on the land, the day he found out about the deal was the day that you found out when it was announced. I mean, we had to keep the circle tight, and that's why, again, he takes some hits because his colleagues on the commission, he and I didn't meet with them until about 6 to 8 days before we made the announcement, because it's trust again. Who can you trust that's not going to have that conversation saying, hey, I'm going to tell you something, but you can't tell anybody? And you know, I remember I wanted to wait till the mayor got elected in Atlanta, and I sent him a congratulatory note the next morning, 6 a.m., and then it said, we have to have a serious conversation. And so he told me he was coming back from South Carolina just to meet with me. I know he thought the topic was going to be for me complaining again about just not making any progress in our year-long negotiation of a public-private partnership. And so, you know, that Thursday, I let him know we're leaving. And one of the things, Tim, I made a commitment to him for that first day of lunch over that 3 hours was he said, 3 times he asked me, I'll never forget, I can't be a stalking horse here. I said, you're not. If you and I can pull this off, we're coming. This is where we want to be for the future. And so I was never going to, even though I was asked more than once, maybe we should do this with the mayor, maybe we should give him one last shot. No, that's not the commitment we made, and this is where we want to be. But that was Thursday, 2 days after his election. Friday, I get a phone call from one of our key guys and says, hey, I think we're cooked. And we were on thin ice at this point, because now we had told the rest of the commissioners, and our group of knowledge was 40 plus people at that point when you added everyone up. I mean, we used to have all our meetings at chamber. The mandate was no one walked in there with an A on anything. That nice lady, that's the receptionist in your office over there, that first day I walked in there after this announcement, she looked at me, he's like, Mr. Plant, now I know what you were doing in there all those months. You know, so she and I had a big laugh. But hey, Mike, I think we're cooked. I said, what's up? He said, my brother owns a restaurant in Cobb, and the bread truck driver just delivered some bread. And he said to my brother, hey, you hear the Braves are moving to Cobb? I was like, oh man, we're cooked. The bread truck driver knows. And then that Saturday, the next day, Kentucky was at UGA playing football, and it was Chris Carr was at the game. And Chris, obviously because of Johnny's knowledge, Chris knew, and he sent me a text, said, hey, just want to let you know, people are talking about the Braves move to Cobb. And I was like, holy cow. So I called all of our team together. I said, Sunday night, we're going to meet downtown. We're going to release this on Monday. And it was Monday morning when we did. So that was kind of he and I had been talking through all this, but we knew we were on thin ice there. But the amazing thing is, bread truck driver, people talking, texting at UGA about us, not a single person thought, hey, I've got a friend in the media business. Let me see if they've heard anything. Because that would have rippled through, and that would have unleashed the gates a little bit and probably put us on the run a little bit. So, but yeah, we kept it tight. For good reasons.
Oh yeah. I'm curious about the conversation with the mayor and how that went.
I went off the Christmas card list. Yeah. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got testy.
So Tim,
But as I made it clear to him, you blame me all day for this, you blame yourself.
So Tim, did you have to threaten your staff about chatting with anybody? Because you were over at chamber all the time. By the way, Mike, there were several times where pizza people came in and said, I got an order for the Atlanta Braves. Shut up.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. More than one.
Yeah.
But you know, but I think part of the reason it stayed quiet, nobody believed it. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody believed it. The Braves coming to Atlanta, come
Yeah.
on, you're smoking something. So.
Yeah.
Tim, talk about how you kept it quiet in the county.
Well, the first person after we had lunch, the first person I called was Brooks, who, you know, was the guy, and told him what we were working on. And it was just me and Brooks at that point.
For a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then Jim
And
was
Jim.
in there, and then Faye was in there.
Yeah.
We had some transportation things.
Basically,
Yeah, it was tight.
you were brought in if you had something between your ears that could benefit the project moving forward. If you didn't have anything to contribute to it moving forward, we just didn't tell you. Eventually, I had to get to a point where, you know, I understood my authority, and I understood what I was, what I could commit to and what I didn't, and I was clear with them. That, look, I'm going to make this happen, but it takes a vote, and we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. So we all knew, and that's one thing Mike and I always, and I've told people this, when we went into a meeting, we took our cards and put them down on the table so that we weren't playing games, because we didn't have time to play games. We're going to, look, I'm hurting, you're hurting, this time I won, next time you win. You know, we got a win-win most of the time. And then, but, so we had that, it goes back to that trust. I knew he wasn't going to take advantage of me, and he knew I wasn't going to take advantage of him, but we needed to get it done. So folks were brought in when they needed something, or I needed something between their ears, or we got to a point where procedurally I needed to inform the county manager or the county attorney or folks that we were doing. I was working on a project that you know, they needed to know because of the position they held in the government structure that we were in. So I am authorized to do nothing. All we were doing up to that point was having conversation and working on some paperwork and doing some modeling. Just like every economic development deal, and to Mike's point earlier, I mean, if we had been, you know, courting Apple computers, you know, they don't want to have it out in the newspaper that we're negotiating moving, because all their employees, you know, at the existing site, the good ones would leave within 2 weeks, and you'd be, you know, there would just be chaos. So, and it may not work. I mean, look at the deal in New York, where even after it's gotten done, that's fallen apart. So there's in economic development, and I have been saying this from the get-go, this was an economic development project that happened to be the Atlanta Braves, and their product happened to be baseball, but their investment in our community was such that, and we ran all the ROIs, and Jim did all the budgeting, and we knew that this was going to work. Our investment of $300 million over 30 years was going to work to the positive in the government side, and we knew that it would be payback would be less than 3 years, and we had the modeling before we even went to and that's what actually helped convince the commissioners. So we knew it was good for the county, and that also is atypical for the media world to understand that the county would do something, first would approach it as economic development, second of all was investing as opposed to spending, and investing with a return on investment, not only direct through the project here, but we knew that the halo effect, since their announcement, 5 new office towers, Class A office towers got built in this within half a mile of this place, and it wouldn't have happened without this investment. So in terms of people, we felt we needed to keep it at a point, our strategy as to how we were going to do it all. You know, we vetted with my staff, with his team, and we all the way, you know, obviously went all the way up to the Supreme Court and was challenged, and they ruled, we got approvals all the way up because we did our work to make sure that we did everything ethically, responsibly, and legally, and most importantly, we could look at each other and look at our family in the eye and say we did the right thing.
It's right at 11:45. We've got time for one more question.
Yeah.
Okay. 50 years from now, Mike, what do you want? What do you think people should know about Tim Lee?
Well, I've said it publicly many times. I mean, you want to talk about a statue? There should be a statue out here for Tim. I mean, we're not, and I've made this clear hundreds of times through tough times through this project. Not every day was just a get up and have a big smile on your face, because it was hard. It was a really hard project, because again, starts with time wasn't our friend. And but every time we needed to unblock the government side, which unfortunately they can get in the way of speed and progress, and certainly our finish line, which was aggressive, he took care of it. And I knew it was at his peril. And I told him a number of times, if you would have never met me, you'd still be the chairman here. I also knew, he always said, this isn't about me. I'm doing this because this is the best thing for Cobb County. If I'm in the crosshairs of that, I'm good with that. And I've always felt he was genuine about that. And so we're not here without Tim. And I made sure people knew that all the time. Without Tim, we are not here. This is still a Woods.
I've known Tim since he ran for county commissioner. I wrote one of the early financial checks for Tim, because I felt who he was. Jamie Vann was the first one to tell me who you were. Tim, 50 years from now, what should people know about Mike Plant as it pertains to this project?
He was, well, I hate to parrot it, but for him, it wouldn't be here. His vision, his dedication, his integrity, his character, all those put together with his ethics, hard work ethics, is what made it happen. And in the corporate environment, you're not going to find a better manager, a better leader, a better visionary, a better get it done, and someone that's not afraid to, if it has to get done and there's no one to do it, I'm going to do it and get it done and work hard. I mean, we had some contentious moments, we had some great moments, we had some emotional moments, because it was a heck of a ride for 3.5 years. But you're not going to find a better person to work with, a better person to have as a friend, or a better person to hold as a role model for your kids, for your business community, for your community, as to what it's like to be a good person in not only our corporate and our community life, but I've said it before, in God's eyes, this is a superstar in our community, and I know it and I believe it, and I'll forever be indebted to him to take the risk to bring it to Cobb, because but for him, again, but for Mike and his leadership, they wouldn't be here. And if they wouldn't be here, Cobb wouldn't be having anywhere near the success that they're having today, but for Mike Plant.
Is there anything I want to add? Because we've sort of done anything that you want to say to the world? This video documentary will be around for a long time. Anything y'all want to add?
I'll just say that, and I know on behalf of everyone in this organization, the Braves, none of us ever regret the day we made a decision that this is where we want to be. And it's a project that we're all just incredibly proud of, and we value, like I value my friendship with Tim, we value the fact that this community has embraced not only us as individuals, but professionally our entire organization. And our job is to go out there and win World Series, and to bring that first one back here to, or second one back here to Cobb County, and it's something that we strive for every single day. But also, I know we're all enjoying being part of this community, and hopefully people are seeing the effort that we're making beyond just winning games and going after that World Series, is that we're trying to truly be a positive force in the entire community, from young to old, and using our resources, using our passion, using what we can do to reach people. So that's something we're really proud of as well.
I went to Harvard for a second MBA and studied, must have read 200 case studies. What y'all did as leaders is a case study. You won't find it anywhere. I mean, I went hundreds of them, never did. You'd have a leader that did some, but not joint leaders who put it on the line for each other.
Yeah,
Y'all got to be
that's a
proud
good
of that.
point.
Yeah, got to be proud of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's great
Yeah, it
visiting
was
with you
fun.
guys
I
again.
think we could talk about for hours.
Yeah, I know.
And it's fun to you don't think about it. I don't get up. I don't know. It's just something we both did.
You just did it. Yeah.
Just did it. I mean, I've asked him, Mike, you got to write a book about this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure how many people would buy it. But I said it'd be fun to kind of think about And now you sit there and the great regrets you have in life. One, I always thought, hey, I should have kept a business card from everyone I ever had. You know, I went to somebody's house once and I saw all these. I said, "Whose cards are those?" They said, "They're mine." And because I've done a bunch of things and becoming a legend in my own mind. But the other one was, you know, it would have been fun to keep a little bit of a diary in this one
Yeah.
because it was fast.
Yeah.
It was fast and furious, but really rewarding.
Thank you again
Yeah.
for your time. I know you're busy.
No,
You've got a
you bet.
baseball team to prepare to